Welcome to the Reddit Chronicles. Today we will be reading from Am I the Jerk? Our first post is by Lazy Radish. Am I the jerk for refusing to make breakfast for my father-in-law? I, 25F, recently got married 8 months to my 28-year-old husband. My father-in-law came to visit 3 days ago, and when he arrived late at night I was shocked because we were not expecting him until a day ago. I'm heavily pregnant, and I could easily pop any time from now. My energy levels have dropped significantly, and I can barely do any housework. Now the day he arrived I was lucky because I had prepared the meal in bulk for meal prep, as I'm doing this to save energy. So I served him the food and it wasn't a problem at all. Now fast forward to today. My father-in-law has an interview, but last night both him and my husband didn't let me know what time he was going to leave. I was woken up early morning by my husband to iron his father's clothes. I didn't want to, but I did it. I haven't been well lately due to pregnancy, and getting out of bed is a bit hard. My husband then went on to scroll on his phone whilst I did the ironing. He didn't bother to at least boil water for his father's breakfast. After I was done ironing, he asked why I hadn't made breakfast for his father, and went on to say I don't love his relatives. I went back to bed and told him I wasn't well and that I wasn't going to make breakfast. He went on to say he can't wait for me to go to my parents. After I give birth, I'm meant to stay at my parents' and learn a few things about the baby, because I've become useless. Our next post is by Vivid Promise. Am I the jerk for wearing a gold dress to a wedding? I put gold in quotation markers because I think it's more bronze orange, but maybe I'm splitting hairs and am the jerk. Some context. My 30F best friend Dan, 30M, got married to Lauren, 27F, yesterday. Me and Dan have been best friends since high school, and despite always being platonic with no romantic interests on either side, his now wife Lauren has always disliked me. In their 3 years of dating, I have not been allowed to see Dan alone because she feels that it's suspicious that I want to hang out with him. Honestly, I just missed my friend. Despite me being happily married, she's always kept me at arm's length. I always figured this was because she's from a very conservative family. Dan has spoken to her multiple times, and after, she'll back off for a bit before reverting to complaining about him being friends with a girl again. It's not ideal, but she makes Dan happy, so I made my peace with it. That brings us to the wedding. Originally, I was going to be in the groom's party, but Lauren ended up crying, saying a wedding is not a place to swap gender roles. Dan was fighting her on this, but I told him I'll just attend as a guest and not to choose this hill to die on. The dress code was warm tone garden party, and we were encouraged to wear earthy warm colors. I picked out a bronze orange dress that I thought fit this perfectly, and the style even matched some examples they gave. In short, I thought I had nailed it. The wedding went great, however. At the reception, Lauren dragged me aside and said, "I cannot believe you would wear gold to my wedding. You're not the first prize, you're just trashy." I was so shocked in the moment I just stared at her. She practically screamed at me to leave, and she was drawing attention, so I grabbed my husband, said goodbye to Dan, and left. Dan reached out after and told me he was upset I left his wedding so soon. Lauren's mom has texted me saying I ruined the wedding for her daughter and I'm stupid for wearing a gold dress. She's saying it's as bad as wearing white. I was genuinely not aware this was a thing. I want to reach out to Dan to explain, but I don't know if I'm in the wrong here. Am I the jerk? Update. Wow guys, I genuinely didn't know what to expect posting to strangers on this, but I am so thankful to my husband for suggesting this. I needed a non-biased view on this wearing gold to a wedding issue, and now it's clear that that was never the issue. Turns out Dan found out pretty quickly what actually happened and called me last night. Apparently Lauren's mom had told him I was really drunk and told Lauren her dress wasn't it, so I was requested to leave. Dan had his suspicions that it was BS, but it wasn't until his mom calling him that confirmed it. Turns out she was nearby when Lauren pulled me aside and ironically was actually wearing a yellow gold dress and tore him a new one about letting Lauren treat me like that. Dan didn't have a solution when he called. I could tell he was emotionally exhausted and pretty defeated. He said he wished I had taken it out on the open bar rather than leaving, but he understood why I left. He thanked me for taking the high road and that it hasn't gone unnoticed. He apologized for what happened. Apparently, this is an ongoing fight between him and Lauren. For all of those who said Lauren just hates me, turns out it's 100% true. Apparently, she has been trying to convince Dan to cut me off because that's what a good husband does. He said he thought she had gotten over it now that they were married. I told him that he needs to focus on his happiness and that I will always be here to support him. and that I will take a step back if that's what he needs. They were supposed to leave for their honeymoon yesterday, but when Dan called, they were still at home, so who knows? I've blocked Lauren and her mom, and forwarded the messages to Dan as recommended. Thanks again everyone for your comments and judgment. Our next post is by Beginning Jaguar. Am I the jerk for refusing to share my huge inheritance with my step-siblings? So I, 17M, found out only a few weeks ago that my dad left me a lot of money in a trust. Like it's such a crazy amount that I didn't really believe it at first, but it's true. The reason is my dad had inherited from both his parents already. He also inherited from the only 2 uncles he had as well. And one of them was very successful and had a business. This was all explained in a letter my dad wrote to me. He had the trust set up before he came into most of the money, but when he found out his cancer was incurable, he decided to put it all aside for me once all medical bills were paid off for him. My parents were separated but not legally divorced when my dad was sick or died, but they weren't living together or a couple for a year. This was 10 years ago. My mom and her husband have struggled financially for years. They started dating when his youngest kid was 1. His wife had died, he was going through a legal battle with the mother of his oldest, and his oldest is in therapy for trauma caused by their mom. Also, his youngest was born with some medical issues and has lots of doctor appointments. Between everything, money was tight. We live paycheck to paycheck, and I worked to make my own life a little more comfortable. But we had no college savings or anything before this. My mom and her husband drained their own bank account to keep a roof over our heads. This has all been brought up to me as a good reason why I should do this. My mom told me it was selfish for Dad to put it all away solely for my future, and he should have been thinking about raising me as well. She told me I might not call her husband Dad or his kids my siblings, but we are a family, and that this family has been through so much together, and we have struggled for so long, that it would be so good and generous for me to do this. I told her it's not like I can access the money now. She said no, but when I do, I should set up accounts for my 3 step-siblings so they have a better chance at college, and if not college, the chance to have a head start in life. Despite all their trying to talk me into it, I said no. I told them I wasn't going to share the money. My mom was so mad, but it was nothing compared to how mad her husband was. They told me to quit being selfish and start acting with compassion. Am I the jerk? Our next post is by Fantastic Emu. Am I the jerk for refusing to go to the office for violating a dress code? I, 15F, am in high school and got dress coded by my teacher during history class. The dress code at my school is usually not so enforced. It was also a pretty hot day, so I wore a pair of shorts. The rule at my school is that our fingertips have to go past the length of our pants, otherwise it's out of dress code. Well, today, I got up to turn in an assignment and my teacher noticed that I was wearing shorts. He told me to hold my arms down to my shorts and then basically announced to the whole class that my pants were too short. I don't think anyone even noticed what I was wearing until he pointed it out. My fingers went past the hem of my pants by 3 centimeters. It's not like I had anything hanging out. The shorts were jean shorts that had no holes in it and were pretty modest as it went halfway down my thighs. There were at least 3 other guys in class wearing tank tops and sandals, which were also against the rules, but the teacher didn't seem to notice. He told me to go to the office and call my mom for a change of clothes. This was at the beginning of class, and we have a final coming up soon. Today was supposed to be a big review lesson, and I didn't want to miss it. I've also never been sent to the office before, so I was really upset. I just found it ironic that we were learning about gender biases literally yesterday, yet I was being removed from class for being a distraction to the men in the room, so I said no. I understood that I violated the dress code, but seeing as it was the first time it happened, it didn't seem fair to remove me from class during such an important lesson. It was also felt really objectifying to be shamed for my clothing choices. The teacher and I had a bit of an argument that went on for a couple of minutes, and it delayed the class. The teacher and some of my classmates are mad that I didn't just go to the office. Am I the jerk? Thank you for listening to the Reddit Chronicles. Follow for more content.